Hi friends, it's Diana here today, and today we're going to be making the Beyond the Reef dress. Super cute pattern. We do a knit bodice with a woven skirt bottom, and you can add on a couple layers of ruffles at the bottom. It's sleeveless, it's super cute, it's great for summertime and for just running around and having fun. I'm excited to get it done, so let's do it. But before we do, let me remind you of our Fun giveaway of Ellie and Mac, $50 Ellie and Mac gift certificate. And all you have to do is subscribe to our channel if you haven't. Subscribe right now. And then comment below and let us know what you like about our patterns, which one your favorite pattern is, what you're sewing up right now. Just let us know whatever you want to let us know in the comments, and that is how you're entered for a giveaway. And we do this giveaway every month, so there's always a great chance to win. So let's go ahead and get started. Let me remind you, I already cut out my pattern pieces. Once again, I'm making the Beyond the Reef, and let's go ahead and get started. I am not making the little straps on my dress, but I'm going to show you how to do that now, so that you can do your straps if you're planning to do straps. So if you're planning to do straps, obviously this is not the strap. This is just a piece of scrap fabric that I'm going to show you on. We're going to make binding. So first we're going to grab the edges and fold 1/4 inch in on one side. Then we're going to grab our fabric and fold it right down the middle, wrong sides together, and give it a crease. So you folded it right down the middle. Then you're going to open it up, leave that quarter seam down, but open it up and fold the two sides in towards the middle crease. And seam. We've got those two sides come into that middle crease to meet right at the middle. Now we're going to go ahead and fold that middle crease over and seam. And now you have your binding. So now what you're going to do is you're going to go around with your sewing machine and top stitch all the way around the edges to give it a very finished, nice finished look. So you'll top stitch that, go up and over and down. And you'll do that for both straps so that they're ready to sew on when we put our bodice together. So next we're going to put our bodice together. I got my front and I've got my back, and I'm putting it right side up on my board. Right side up on my board. And I'm going to put the other one right on top of it, right sides together, and I'm going to meet out those shoulders. And we're going to sew those shoulders together. Shoulders together. We're going to sew right here, those shoulders together. We can use a serger. I will be using my serger, but if you don't have a serger, a sewing machine will be just fine. You just have to use a stretch stitch on your sewing machine when you're using knit fabric. What kind of stretch stitch should I use? Well, there's all different kinds of stretch stitch. There's lightning bolt, zigzag stitch, anything that's going to give it a little bit of pull. So what you want to do is, if you are not sure about what zigzag stitch it works best with certain fabrics, what I would do is I would grab a piece of scrap fabric of what you're using for your project and try on a couple different stretch stitches on your sewing machine, and then give it a little stretch test and see which one works best. And sometimes, so a lot of times I'll just stick with a regular zigzag stitch when I'm doing that. And what I'll do is I might make it a little bit wider, change my settings so that my stitch is a tiny bit wider, because sometimes the zigzag stitch is super tight. And when it's super tight, it'll tend to try to eat my fabric, and I don't want it to eat my fabric. So I'll make the zigzag stitch just a tiny bit wider, so that it doesn't eat them all in there. So our shoulders are on, our necks are on. Well, our neck is created. Now we have a neck hole. We're going to go ahead and grab our bodice, lay it right side up, and we're going to get our arm bands. I'm going to grab my armband. I'm going to fold it wrong sides together, right down the middle, and give it that crease. Do for both. Okay, now I'm gonna fold it right down the middle and mark that middle half. So I fold it in half, and I'm gonna mark where that middle is, right here at this edge. Do the same thing for the other one, so I can go ahead and prep it, because I like to go ahead and have it prepped already. And clip right there. And now I'm gonna grab that little clip that I made. I like to make a little notch. You can't barely see it, and when I sew it on, you won't be able to see it at all. We're gonna meet that right at the shoulder seam, and then we're gonna go down to one side along the raw edge of the top and attach, and then go the other way as well and pin. You can pin more than once. I usually pin once or twice. I don't pin a whole lot. And then you're gonna go in your sewing machine, and we're gonna sew that shoulder armband on right there. And we're gonna do the same for both sides. Sew that armband on the other side as well. So let's go ahead and sew that on, and we'll move on. Whoa. All right, so my arms are on, and you want to make sure that they're all on right, that you didn't leave any gaps or anything like that once you put them on. So you want to also steam your seams so that they're all facing the same way, so that way it doesn't get all curvy and messy. All right, so now that our armbands are done, we're going to put our bodice right sides together. And if you're doing strap, this is where you're gonna grab your straps and you're gonna put it right side, the raw edge. See how there's what finished edge, the one that we folded a 1/4 inch. The other side that's raw is going to go right, you're gonna put it right at the edge to face out in between. You're gonna sandwich it between the front and the back. Okay, so you're gonna sandwich it right there between the front and the back. And I'm not doing a strap, so I'm not putting that on. But you will have it sandwiched right there in the middle between the front and the back. And now I'm gonna meet up those side seams to sew that bodice together. So we're meeting these side seams. We're sewing the bodice together at the sides. Sewing the bodice together. I'm going to show you in a minute how I tuck in those. All right. So when you sewed your bodice together, you notice that you have this little tail hanging out, and I don't want a tail hanging out. So what I do is I fold it right over that edge, that seam, my seam right here. And I go in my sewing machine and I choose a zigzag stitch and I sew right over it. To tuck it in. And I'm going to do the same for the other side. I have my puppy sitting right here next to me, and sometimes he'll try to sit like right here on my side, and I can't move my chair. I don't want to run his paw over, so that's why I have to sometimes, you see me kind of backing out slowly because I don't want to run him over. So now I'm trimming the end of that tail and all these things.
Is there something else I can help with?
No, thank you. He thought I was talking, well, Siri thought I was talking to them. No. Mm-mm. Okay, so see how it's like there is a little zigzag, but you can't see it now. The tail is tucked in. There we go. All right, so now the neckband. We're gonna grab our neck, and we're gonna grab our neckband And we're gonna fold it again. He's right behind me now. We're gonna fold it again, wrong sides together. And steam it to give it that memory crease. And then we're going to grab our 2 raw edges and we're gonna fold them right sides together, meet at the raw edge, and sew that top raw edge right there, the 2 right sides together. Every time I look at him, he looks at me like, hey mommy, don't you wanna play with me? Do y'all wanna say hi to him? Come here, Bo. Yes. Hi. He's such a sweet pup. He's not so much a puppy anymore. He is still a puppy, but he's getting big. Okay, so now our band is right here. And this is our seam. We're going to go, this is the front half. That's going to be our half. And I'm just going to mark it again with a little notch. I'm going to put a pin there because I'm going to pin that onto the neck. So I'm just going to put a pin there already. And then I'm going to meet the front and the back. The front where I put that notch and the seam in the back. And I'm going to go to the sides. And those are my quarters. And I'm going to pin the quarters. Okay. So now it's my band is split in 4 sections. I'm going to grab my bodice. I'm going to meet my shoulder seams and go to the back. And that's going to be my back. Then I'm going to meet the shoulders again and go to the front. Then I'm going to meet the front and the back and go to the sides. Because your shoulder seams are not your quarter seams. If you go by the shoulder seams, you're going to be a little bit off. You'll have a very tight neck in the back and a very tight front and a very loose back. And you don't want to do that. So that's why we quarter it. Okay. The bigger the size, the bigger the difference will usually be. So now I'm going to meet this right sides together. So the right side of the fabric with the right side of my band. And we're going to meet it at the seam. I usually always put that seam right in the back. And then I'm going to meet up all those quarter points that I just made. He's so tired, he keeps yawning. Do you hear him yawn? He usually sleeps all morning. He's a lazy one. He's a lazy one. So I'm meeting all those quarter points. So now that I met those quarter points, I'm going to go in on my sewing machine and sew. My serger. And you want to make sure that all 3 layers are cut. And what you're going to do is you're going to tighten the band. You're going to pull the band tight enough that it will flush with the bodice. Because you see how the bodice is a little bit looser because the band is going to bring it in. So you're going to pull a little bit and then sew those 3 layers together at the raw edge. So what I do is I put it on my serger, grab this pin and this piece of fabric with this my fingers, and then I go forward and I grab it right here again and I move it with this hand and try to feed it through as it's going through, and I'm sewing my band on. If you have any questions about how to sew a neckband on, we actually have a more close-up tutorial on just bands. So you can check that out on our YouTube channel, and that will help you take a closer look at how to do these bands if you're having a hard time with them. All right. When you're done, you make sure you look at all the serge edges and make sure they're cut. You cut them really nicely, and then you steam them. I always like to steam them inside out because I want to be able to make sure that my seams are all going the right way, and that helps even it out and make it nice and flat and give it a really nice look. Okay, and our bodice is ready and prepped. If you did straps, your straps will have been cut right here on the edges, so they will be right there sticking out if you had your bands, but I didn't. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab our skirt and we're gonna put it together. So I am doing just the same color. So I could have cut it all kind of out as wide as I could have, but I went ahead and cut it the 4 sections so you could see what I'm doing. First thing I'm going to do is I am going to sew the right sides together of the skirt. So I'm piecing the skirt together. So here's right sides together, and I'm going to sew right there. Then I'm going to go to the next section. I'm going to grab the next section, and I'm going to put it right sides together right there. And I'm going to sew that section together. And then I'm going to go to the next section and put it right sides together again. We're creating one big skirt loop. And if you have different color fabrics you want to use, this is the perfect time to do that. This is the perfect pattern for that. Because then at the end, the 2 sides will meet and we're created one whole round skirt. And I'm going to show you. I'll pick it up in a minute. And then I'll get and sew it all together. See, once I sew all those pieces together, we created one continuous round. So I'm going to go ahead and sew them together, and you sew yours together, and we'll move on to the next step. All right, so now my skirt is pieced together, and I went ahead and did my serger seams. But if you didn't want to do serger, if you wanted to just sew in your sewing machine, you can, because this is the woven part. But I like that the serger gives it a finished edge to the raw edge, and I don't have to worry about it coming apart, which is one of the things, you know, woven fabrics can fray. So that's why I like my serger. Now, if you wanted to, you could have done it just 2 layers, and then you wouldn't have 2 seams, but I have the 2 front seams right there, because if you want to do color block, you could do a color block on the middle or anything like that, and it's super cute. So we're going to go ahead and get our ruffles ready, or middle and bottom section. We're going to grab them, and we're going to do the same thing that we did for the skirt. We're going to put them right sides together, and we're going to start piecing them together, the 4 ruffles, or 6 ruffles. Okay, so there's one. We're going to sew that together right there, and then I'm going to go to the next one, and I'm going to piece it together right here. I'm just doing the exact same thing that I did for my skirt. I'm doing it for the ruffle, and I'm doing it for both sets of ruffles, the middle section and the bottom section. And then I'm going to, once I put them all together in a circle, I'm going to hem the bottom section only. You don't need to hem the middle section, because the bottom section is going to be attached to the middle section. So you only have to hem one, the bottom. So I'm sewing these together, piecing them along as I go. Again, if you probably could, if you had the fabric was long enough and you wanted to cut it in like on the fold or whatever, if you're not doing color matching, color blocking, you can do that. I didn't do that because I wanted to show you all the steps. All right, so after I sew all the edges together, we're gonna go back to that front edge, and we're gonna piece it together to make one continuous round, and it's all right sides together. See that? So now I have one long big ruffle. You see that? So I'm going to go ahead and sew all those pieces together for the middle and the bottom ruffle. So I'm going to do the same to the middle ruffle and the bottom ruffle. So let's do it. All right, so now that I sewn all my ruffles together, I went ahead and hemmed my bottom ruffle. So you can either do, if you're doing a, I did a knit, you can do 1/2 inch seam allowance. If you're doing woven though, remember that you're gonna do quarter inch and then another quarter inch over. Fold, you have to fold because wovens will fray, so you don't want it to fray. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab our bottom ruffle and we're going to gather it the width of our skirt. So how I gather sometimes, it varies. I gather different ways all the time, but one of the ways that I mostly gather is by using my really long basting stitch on my sewing machine. And I start it off and I hold my tension on my thread just a little bit. And I go all the way around like that, and it gives it kind of gathers it a little bit for me already as I do that. So it's kind of easy, and then all I have to do is just even it out to how gathered I really want it. I misspoke. I'm not gathering it the width, the bottom ruffle. I'm gathering the width of the middle ruffle, not the width of the bodice. The width of this middle ruffle is what I'm gathering this bottom ruffle to. Okay, so I'm gathering it the width of the top ruffle, the middle ruffle, and I'm loosening it up a little bit because I gathered it a lot. Just making sure it's even. Coming from this side. Loosening it up a little bit because I was thinking, at first I was gathering it to the width of the skirt and I'm like, no, wait. So I had to loosen it up a little bit. So now I'm going to tie this right here so it doesn't loosen up any more than what I wanted to loosen up. And now I am going to grab my ruffle. Hold everything. I like to tie where I started and ended my thread. Because if I don't do that, then I feel like the ruffles will just come apart and that will not be fun. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the bottom of my middle layer. Okay, and I'm going to pin my ruffle to the bottom of that layer. Now, all my seams are not going to match up because my bottom ruffle is wider than my middle ruffle. So I'm just going to match up the raw edges all the way around, pin them together, the width of the middle ruffle. Because then I'm going to attach my bottom ruffle to my middle ruffle. So the right sides together, meeting at the raw edge, going all the way around. Let me go ahead and pin this ruffle on. All right, so now my ruffle is attached to my middle section. This is my bottom ruffle attached to my middle section. I'm gonna go ahead and sew that raw edge together of the middle ruffle and connect the middle ruffle with the bottom ruffle together, right sides together. I'm gonna go ahead and connect that, and then we'll move on to gathering that middle ruffle the width of the skirt and attaching it to the skirt. So let me go ahead and do this, and then we'll move on to the next step, and we're almost done. When you're doing this part, I always put the gathers face up just so I can see how I'm sewing them, because sometimes they want to stretch out. The more pins, the better, but I don't really like to use a ton of pins, but sometimes they want to stretch out. So you want to make sure they don't stretch out so much that you have like a clump of gathers on one side and no gathers on the other. You don't want to do that. So I always want to see the gathers as I'm sewing. That way I can keep them pretty even. So let's do it. Alrighty. My ruffle is attached. My bottom ruffle is attached to my middle ruffle. It's kind of hard to see because it's just kind of flipping. But there it is. There it is. Here we go. All right. So now that my bottom ruffle is attached, you can go ahead and remove that basting stitch, and you can actually, for a very professional look, you can top stitch those two layers right there at the edge. You can steam and top stitch through there with a straight stitch all the way around the whole thing, to give it a more polished look. So I'm gonna go ahead and I can do that and then remove all the basting stitches that I used for gathering. So let me see if I can grab it and remove it. Sometimes they're easy to remove. They just come right out. That's what I love about doing this method. But it's also what I don't like about doing this method, because sometimes when you spend all that time gathering and then your thread breaks and your gathers come apart before you attach them, that is not good. And that's when I don't like this method. But it worked out well this time, and I was able to pin it and sew it together. And now I'm removing that basting stitch. Okay, so then after you remove that basting stitch and you top stitch, if you want to, now that's optional, you don't have to. If you want to, you can. If you don't want to, you don't have to. You can omit that step. I might come back and do it afterwards. It's up to you. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna gather that middle piece. We're gonna gather the middle piece to the width of the skirt. So now that step that I told you earlier, that step is the one that you're gonna do, the width of the middle skirt. So I'm gonna grab my, I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna use my sewing machine. I'm gonna gather this, the width of this skirt right here. Okay, so let me go ahead and do it just like I did. I'm gonna do it just like I did my bottom ruffle with my basting stitch and my sewing machine. And then we'll come back and we'll attach it. And then we'll attach our bodice to our skirt and we'll be done. Almost there. All right, I've done the gathering stitch and I've gathered it. It's not quite as wide as the skirt, so I'm gonna gather it just a tiny bit more so it's just as wide as the bodice, the skirt. I said bodice, but it's not the bodice. Bodice is quite a bit smaller than this. Okay, so now that it's gathered the width of the skirt, I'm gonna go ahead and even out those pleats a little bit. You see, there it is. Now, because we have 4 skirt panels, and we have 4 middle ruffle panels, we can match up those side seams, and then the ruffles will be gathered evenly because you'll have it evenly on those seams. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my ruffle right sides together with my skirt, and I'm going to attach the right sides together at that raw edge, and I'm going to meet my seams to make sure that my gathers are evenly spread out through all my sides. That makes any sense. So what I'm gonna do is now I know that I'm gonna gather these gathers are gonna be spread out through this quarter section. So I'm gonna spread that quarter section out and pin. And then I'll go to the next quarter section and do the same. And that always helps. So I like doing that. I like that it happens to end up that way, because then I can even them out. See, like this quarter section is right here. So I'm gonna pin it to this quarter and ruffle it up so that it's even. And I'm gonna go ahead and keep going with all my 4 sections. And then after I do my 4 sections, we're gonna go ahead and sew it on at that raw edge. You're gonna sew the middle piece and the bodice, the skirt, I'm sorry, I keep calling it a bodice. It's not the bodice. And the skirts together. And then all we'll have left to do is sewing the bodice and the skirt together. So let me finish up spreading these ruffles out and sewing them on, and we'll keep going. All right, so now that bottom is on. Look at how cute this is looking. It's super cute. Now we're gonna go ahead and gather the bottom, the skirt to the width of the bodice. Now we are going to do that. And what I want to do is I want to quarter my bodice so that way I can match some of my seams So I might quarter my seams too. So I'm matching the side seams and I'm going to the front. Come on, it's rolling. This is one thing I don't really love about knit. Okay, here we go. So one, don't know where my baby scissors went. Probably right behind me. And then the other, front and back. Oh, by the way, I know you ask me often what I'm wearing. I am wearing the Tuesday morning hoodie. It's amazing. I love it. It's my favorite hoodie. Yes. So you should make yourself a Tuesday morning hoodie. Okay, so if you want your seams to be on the sides, then you don't have to quarter it, but I want my seams to be like in the middle front like this. So I'm going to quarter the sides and the front because that's where I want it to be on my bodice. So I want to do that now. That way, once I gather, I can still see where the front and the back are after I gather. So because I don't want that line to be in the front. If you want that line in the front and you don't care, then you can go ahead and put that line be your front and your back and your sides. But I'd rather it be kind of sideways, if that makes any sense. Have those two seams going like this on the sides. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my skirt and gather the width of my bodice. And I'm going to do it the same way that I did the bottoms. I'm just going to grab it and have my sewing machine do a lot of the gathering for me before I get to it. All right. So we're going to make sure that it's the width of the bodice. And you just kind of pull at it and let the thread do its thing. And some people do it with like floss because the floss is thicker than the thread, so it slides really well. But I don't like to have the floss. I think would give it make the holes too big. Already as it is, I know some people don't like to do this method because they don't want to see the little holes of the needlework. But I don't think it's that bad. But you can do the serger gather method, and I've done I think the playtime tutorial. I show how to do the serger gathered method, and that way you serge around the edge and you just pull the thread and gather with that, and then it won't have the little bumps on there. If that's what you would rather do, you can do that. Yes. All right, so I'm gonna find where I made my quarters. So I see one right there, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna fit my bodice right sides into this skirt, so that way the right side of my bodice is touching the right side of my skirt. We're putting it right sides together, and I'm going to match these quarter points that I made and pin, because I want them to be at the quarter points, not at the seams. So my seam to quarter points. So first I match the quarter points, and after I match the quarter points, then I'll pin it evenly. Kind of like I did that middle ruffle. There's a seam. Here's a seam. Where's my... There it is. I almost couldn't find it. All right, now I'm going to make sure that those gathers are even. And pin. Like I said, I like to sew with my gathers up, so I'll turn it and sew it the other way. Like I want my gathers to still be up so I can still see them when I'm sewing. The one good thing is that this woven I'm using, it's a very nice like kind of sharp woven. I don't know if that makes any sense. It's not like flimsy. It's a good woven. Like some wovens, you can see they're very, very like flimsy and they wrinkle really easy, like the cheaper wovens. This one is more of it's a nicer fabric, so it holds its shape a little bit better. So I'm gonna go ahead and serge all the way around, and we are basically done. All we gotta do after that is if you want a top stitch, and you'll be done. So let me sew around so I can show you my cute little dress. All right. And my dress is finished. All I have to do now is pull all these gathering basting stitches. And then if I want to go ahead and top stitch all my edges, you can do that. I'm not sure if I will or not. I'm always so scared of top stitching. I feel like my dress looks so cute. And then I'm like, ooh, what if I mess up the top stitching and then it doesn't look as cute anymore? I mean, I guess you can always pull the top stitching off if it doesn't look good. But I'm like, why do the extra work? But it does give it a more finished look, because if you see some store-bought dresses, a lot of times they are top stitched. So this is up to you. It is a preference. So if it's your preference to top stitch, then right now is when you top stitch and you are done. I'm going to steam it down so it's nice and even, but I am loving it. Do you love it? Let me know in the comments what you think. I hope you enjoyed this sewing tutorial. I hope you make plenty more. Please come and show them to us on our Facebook and our Instagram page. We'd love to see them. Come share them with us. We want to share in your excitement. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do so you can see all the other sew-alongs coming on. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Comment, like, share, and I'll see you all next time.